He sees himself as a 21-year-old that got shot in the back, and he also sees himself as a lost young man who almost got kicked out of the military. You see, Colonel Shabazz is not just a clean-cut success story, but a story of triumph through persistence and resilience, never giving up and never losing hope. Colonel Shabazz, someone once asked you how it all started for you, and your reply began with, "Unfortunately, it started when I was a young kid. I was molested by a family friend." Why do you hold that to be the starting point to your journey? And what is the importance of that in your life?
Well, it's the importance of it is one in three people in this world have dealt with molestation. Uh, Men um, see it as a badge of shame, and sometimes they don't recover from it. That statement in itself has had many men to cry in my arms, many men to say, "What gives you the courage to say that?" Many men say, "I've been struggling with this all of my life." And so I make it a starting point for myself because it's healing for me and it's healing for other men. And so the second part of that is showing and helping people understand it doesn't matter what happened to you in your life, it's what you choose to do to overcome those things. And I can tell you, it has endeared a lot of people to me, just on a level of a human being. It transcends religion. It transcends ethnicity. It transcends race. To be able to be a man of my size, I'm 6'4", 265 pounds, a man of my stature. I'm a colonel, I'm a PhD, I'm a very successful man, and a man of my religious base. And all of those things, I should be hiding that type of information. But to start off with that information, it automatically endears people to me, and they know that I'm one of them.
You gave me a response of hindsight, which is often 2020. But let's go back to when it was foresight, when you had to look forward to the future in those moments and hope for a better one. How did you deal with going through that as a child? And
Well, I didn't deal with it well, and that's why you see the That's why you see the failure after failure after failure. I was a happy-go-lucky kid. Um, Before then I end up going in special education because I didn't want to talk to anybody.
when was
Uh,
that? When did you go into
that,
special
that was
education?
that was eighth grade. All right. Um, then ninth, 10th, and 12th grade, I failed because I was hiding. I was ashamed. Um, so I didn't have anything.
What were you hiding from and ashamed from? Is this going back
Well,
to the
I'm ashamed from the molestation. I mean, the authority figures in my life failed me. And because they failed me, I never told them. I mean, because I love the people in my life. I didn't want to tell them because they were going through enough. You know, I grew up in a single parent household, and my mom had so much going on in her life. I didn't want to add to that. I understand that some nights we didn't eat. I understand that some nights uh, we had what we call roaches, and they would go over the food, and we would have to brush the roaches off the food and eat the food. I mean, we're very poor people, um, and so she was doing the best that she could, and I was an insightful kid, so I understood that, right? And so why add to that to a single mother who's working two and three jobs just to try to make it? And so, yeah, that set off a lot of bad stuff for me. Gave me poor self-esteem, poor self-worth. Um, and so the only thing I actually had in my life was basketball. And so basketball got me to college, but I was still drinking myself to sleep at night. I was fighting every weekend. I was Anybody who looked at me with a jaundiced eye I just would beat the hell out of them, right? Because I thought they were looking at me because of the molestation. And so at the end of the day, it just made me feel like a horrible person.
Wow. So what there's a lot here I'm interested in.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it is. And this is why I am the way I am. So when you look at the bio, right, people are amazed by the bio and all the stuff that I've done, and it is amazing, right? And sometimes I look at it and cry because no person that came from where I came from and had to overcome what I've overcome to should achieve this type of success, right? But for me, because I had poor self-esteem and poor self-worth, I wanted to be achieve as much as I could achieve. And so I spent 25 years messing up my life. So I wanted to spend the next 25 years evolving my life or transforming my life. I've been in school for 25 straight years. That's where you see the 2 PhDs and the 4 master's degrees, right? Because I wanted to transform my life. And I did that by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why I want to, as an
So
imam, yeah, go
how
ahead.
long did that period of your life continue for? That period where you were angry, lost, low self-esteem, getting yourself into trouble?
Until I was about 28. Yeah, until I was
28.
about 28 when I was almost kicked out of the military for disrespect to my authorities. Because at that point, I had no respect for authority. Anybody who tried to tell me something or anybody would curse at me, I would just beat them up. I was always a big guy. I just beat them up. And that got me in a lot of trouble in the military. If somebody cursed at me, I cursed back at them.
Even if they
Uh,
were your higher ranking officer?
didn't Yeah, it didn't matter to me because at the end of the day, I was molested and my authority figures let me down. And so, even if they were my commanding officer, nobody talks to me in a denigrating way, and I even struggle with it now. Um, and so now, obviously, I'm 54 years old with children and grandchildren, and I have to take a deep breath um, and be careful if somebody is trying to put me down. And and in fairness, my rank is so high, it's very few people that's going to even try to put me down.
So why were you shot in the back at 21 years old?
Well, that's the thing. I was drinking myself to sleep at night. So I was in the club, and as I said before, anybody who looked at me for more than 2 seconds, and I thought they were looking at me because at that time I didn't know if I was a man or a woman. Anybody who looked at me for more than a couple of seconds or said something smart with me, we were going to fight. And they probably didn't know why, but I knew why. And so that night, um, people were tired of me bullying them. 6 guys jumped me, beat me with a shovel, and shot me in the back. And so I had to be airlifted out to Tyler Medical Center where I almost lost my life. So yeah, I was fighting every weekend. I went to jail twice. I know, alhamdulillah, 30 years later, I went back to the school last month and spoke to the students. And so that was very gratifying to me. And they gave me Minister of the Year, even though it's a Christian college, right? The Muslim chaplain gets Minister of the Year, and I don't even work for them, alhamdulillah.
That's a beautiful show of religious unity right there, which we
That's
should
right.
love.
That's right.
Did your mind change at all after you got shot? Did your
No,
attitude change at all?
no. And what the bio doesn't tell you, I'm laughing just because I'm saying no, my attitude didn't change. I came back 6 months later after I healed. You're going to think this is interesting. It's shameful, but it's actually pretty interesting. And that's why I went to jail. So I saw the guy 6 months later who shot me. And so this is why it's important to have good friends in your life. So my friends, so-called friends, they told me he was on campus. And so I was terrified. I thought he was coming to finish the job. So they gave me a sawed-off shotgun and a 45, right? And so my job as a man in dysfunctional terms was to eliminate this guy, right? Because that's the environment that I was in. That was the mindset I was in. And Allah always sends somebody from the wilderness to, the Quran says, well, Hadaina hu najadain. He says, I have shown man two highways. Allah always sends somebody to talk some sense into you. So it was one guy who says, hey, man, I'm going to start crying here. He says, if you do that, you're gonna disappoint your mom, right? Love my mom, right? Rest in peace to her. And so because he said that, I decided not to kill that guy that night. I took a crowbar and I beat him senselessly, all right? But I ended up going to jail for that. But I didn't kill him. All right. So that's the great news of that story. But my mind didn't change. I was still in the same environment. I was still in the same mindset. And the people that were there were in the same mindset. So at the end of the day, no, my mind didn't change until 7 years later when I found Islam.
Did this guy get in trouble for hitting you at all? He wasn't caught at all for
Uh,
shooting you?
he went to jail, but they were bonded out. It's black on black crime. Yeah,
Mm.
he went to jail, but he was bonded out. So
What events, series of events, or butterfly effects led you to Islam, do you think?
it's almost interesting. This is how you know that Allah is guiding you all the time. So I was in college, and it's this kid there. He's Muslim. Um, he's Muslim, and He's on the basketball team, and he doesn't eat pork, right? And he's telling me, "Hey, I'm Muslim." Like, we didn't even know what it was, honestly. He said, "I don't eat pork." So for me, I'm like, "Hey, give me the pork. I'll eat it." Right? So we eat the pork, and we go by his room, and he's playing Islamic tapes, right? Farrakhan and Malcolm X and all these people, right? And I'm like, the hell is this some type of cult? This dude is in? So anyway, didn't pay much attention to it. Came into the to Baton Rouge after I got expelled from college for going to jail. I go down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I'm in a retail store. I'm working at Kmart as a slash retail person and a janitor. All right. And so you got two Muslims in there, and they talking to me about Islam and all this stuff. And I'm like, hey, man, keep that stuff to yourself. I'm Christian. I don't want to hear any of that stupid stuff that you're saying. And as Allah would have it, they reduced the hours to my work, and I end up having to stay with one of those Muslims. So he's leaving books on my bed and all this kind of stuff. I was like, this dude. I mean, seriously, I said, this dude is stupid. Like, I got to get out of here. So anyway, that's when I decided to come in the military. So I came in the military. We're in the motor pool.
So you joined the military.
I joined the military. I just had to get it. I had to get away from this guy, But
Oh, so you joined the military to get away from a Muslim guy that was
I,
kind of.
yeah, I mean, Dad, my wife, my girlfriend was pregnant too, so it's economics as well. But I need to get away from him, and all the rest of the people who are hounding me about this Muslim stuff. And so I come in the military, and we're in the motor pool, and it's got this Muslim guy. I mean, annoying, always talking about Islam and always downing Christianity. So I said, that's it. We're going to debate. I'm a learned person in Christianity. I've been studying Christianity all my life. And so we're going to this debate. And I start, and I said, first of all, you have no case. You guys hate Jesus. You don't know Jesus. You're not having it. You won't have any salvation without Jesus. And he said, yeah, this will be an easy argument because this guy is ignorant. And he gives me about 12 verses on Jesus, right? So I said, well, we know you're lying because that's not in the Quran, right? I had never read the Quran. And so he gave me these verses, and I got to tell you, it sent me into total abyss. I mean, I went home and I was like, have I been lied to all my life? How is Jesus in the Quran? And how is it pretty much congruent with what the Bible says, and in a sense? And then the movie Malcolm X came out in the midst of me in this turmoil. And this was the clincher for me. Malcolm X had an 8th grade education, was considered really an ignorant person, no formal education, and he learned the whole dictionary, right? And became one of the greatest speakers in American history. And I identify with that because I never considered myself a smart man. I failed all the way through high school and I was thrown out of college. And I cried on my wife's shoulder. I'm married by this time. I cried on her shoulder. And I said, whatever he is, I want to be. Right. And so I found out he was Muslim. And so I started studying Islam for 2 years, Bible and Quran, 7, 8 hours a day. And the name Shabazz, that's from El Hajj Malik Shabazz when he came from Mecca. And I became Muslim and I dedicated my life to Islam. And that's when I decided to go to school for the next 25 years. That's how all of that happened. Just like that. It's like it's been a guide to my life the whole time.
What was that moment of guidance within the 2 years? When did it really click to you while you were researching Islam that this is the truth, or even the moment that Allah opened your heart to guidance?
Well, I mean, it changed my mentality. Right? It changed my mentality in the sense where it sounds primitive or nomadic, but I just wasn't beating people up anymore. Right? You know, the Quran talks about when the ignorant address you, just say peace. I had a peace and calm over me that I had never experienced. Right? I wasn't thinking about the molestation. I wasn't as angry. Right? And I noticed a change. So I'm sitting and I'm looking at all these videotapes of Muslims. I'm studying Malcolm X, and at that particular time, you know, I'm studying anything that got to do with Islam. And so for me, um, it softened me, and when it softened me, yeah, the rest is history. I just became a totally different person.
SubhanAllah. So it changed you just by you researching it before you even became Muslim.
That's correct.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely changed me. And people noticed. People were saying it was weird. I mean, honestly, they were like, "Man, you got a light in your face. You know, your whole disposition has changed. What's going on with you?" And of course, I'm ashamed at this time. I wouldn't tell anybody that I'm studying Muslim, not being a Muslim. And so, but people constantly saying that, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing," right? And so, yeah, when I accepted, it was almost like I accepted. 7 months later, this chaplain is coming down, you know, to check on us, and he says, you know, I heard you're a Muslim, and I was ready. I was about to skin him alive, even though he outranked me. I was going to tell him all the stuff that Islam was about. He said, you know, why don't you become a Muslim chaplain to help the Muslims in the military like you, right? And so, no, I've never received a revelation. I've never received wahi, but I can tell you when he said that, my whole life changed. I knew right then what my purpose was. And so I said to myself, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And so I put everything into that. And that's how I became the person I am right now.
What happened next after you converted? What came next?
I made promotion to E5. 8 months after that, 9 months after that, I got out of the military and went to the School of Islamic Social Sciences. Started
How did
studying Islam.
how did your family and your friends react to your Islam?